New early voting numbers are in as candidates make last-minute campaign stops in North Carolina. We look at how effective visits like these really are at swinging voters. Then, two of Raleigh's HBCUs say they have ideas about how to get much-needed funding. The new talks about how to use land the schools own. And the 5 candidates in the running for Raleigh's mayor talk about their positions on affordable housing.
Our first week of the state fair is a temperature roller coaster. The 2 cold fronts that I'm tracking that we will feel and when.
You are looking live at 2 campaign events happening in our state tonight. Second gentleman Doug Emhoff is in Carrboro. And then on the right of your screen, you see former President Donald Trump just taking the stage in Greensboro. You know, North Carolina is a battleground state, and both sides keep showing up to make a last-ditch effort to earn votes. Thanks for joining us here at 7 o'clock. I'm Ashley Rowe.
And I'm Dan Haggerty. So we're just 2 weeks away now from Election Day, if you can believe it. But remember, ballots are already being cast with early voting. As of last night, 143,000 people in Wake County have cast their ballots. Statewide, the number is 1.38 million. That means that 17% of eligible voters already formally made their decision.
And the campaign visits aren't over. Governor Tim Walz will visit Durham, Greenville, and Wilmington on Thursday. Former President Barack Obama will be in Charlotte on Friday. Clearly, both parties know North Carolina is important, right? Between Charlotte and the mountains, the Triad, the Triangle, the East, the coast. We've seen at least 36 presidential campaign visits to our state this year.
And you might see all of that and think, who are these campaigns trying to convince at this point? How many undecided voters are actually out there going to these rallies for Vance and Trump and Walz and Harris? Probably not many. Also, the people who go to these rallies are already pretty likely to vote as well. What are the chances people are going to wait in line for a campaign event and then decide to skip the polls? So why are the candidates pushing so hard here at this point in the game?
Right. There are all kinds of books and studies on this, actually. A 2017 Stanford study found the best estimate of the effects of campaign contact and advertising on Americans' candidates' choices in general elections is 0. One author kind of actually compares it to a war of attrition. Political science professor Christopher Devine wrote the 2023 book, I'm Here to Ask for Your Vote, How Presidential Campaign Visits Influence Voters. He told a radio station, when your opponent is visiting and you don't bother, it opens up an opportunity for them. Sometimes the effectiveness of these visits isn't so much in the votes they gain, but canceling out whatever advantage the other candidate might have. We did see this play out in 2016, right? Hillary Clinton never visited Wisconsin. She lost that state. Some believe that's the reason she lost the election. So again, part of it is this bit of a cat and mouse game that they play. Another part is money. Unprecedented amounts of money. With 2 weeks now to Election Day, the millions and millions of dollars in the bank, the campaigns are kind of in this use it or lose it situation. Here's how WRAL state government reporter Will Duran put it.
They're both breaking records with hundreds of millions of dollars that are pouring in from donors who want to see either of these campaigns succeed. And so what do you do with that? You buy ads on TV, you hire staff to get on the ground, and you can charter planes and send people to Carrboro or Goldsboro or, all over the state we've seen people going to.
So the campaigns have money to burn and only a few weeks left to light that fire, and they hope the fire spreads.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, each visit rallies volunteers, the local buzz, media coverage, enthusiasm, which could lead to some of the largest voter turnout in American history. All right, if you are just getting to the news tonight, let's get you through the big headlines. Here are 5 things you should know right now. Right now, Wake County deputies are searching for a man who ran off when they tried to serve an arrest warrant. Sky 5 flew over the area where this happened off Graham Newton Road. They're looking for 49-year-old Kevin Nichols. They don't believe there's any threat to the public at this time. Traffic getting back to normal near the state fair after crews repaired a gas leak on Hillsborough Street. This is video of the backups we saw all day long. Oh, that looks rough. It all started when crews struck a 6-inch main around 9 this morning. They had to shut down part of the Beltline as a result. After several hours, they capped the leak. No one had to be evacuated, and fortunately, no customers were impacted either.
That was a big mess, though. The Buncombe County Sheriff's Office now says they over-reported the deaths from Helene. Previously, the county officials said 72 people had died from the storm. Now the number is down to 42. The Sheriff's Office said the reason for the overcount included updated causes of death and communication challenges they were having after this storm. So that is good news that fewer people were killed, but still 42, of course, is a lot. And tonight, people in Buncombe County are holding a candlelight vigil in Asheville's Pack Square. Local leaders will speak there. Local choirs will perform. It's all a moment to pause and to remember the people who lost their lives in this storm and the people who lost them as well. There's an E. coli outbreak right now being linked to McDonald's Quarter Pounders. 49 people have gotten sick. 10 people have been hospitalized. One person has died. The reports are coming out of states out of our west. So far right now, no reports of this infection here in North Carolina.
Raleigh leaders are considering the possibility of buying or leasing land from the city's 2 historically black universities for affordable housing. It was part of a larger conversation to build partnerships and find more funding for Shaw and St. Augustine's universities. As WRAL's Destiny Patterson reports, the mayor says land for affordable housing is her first priority.
Leaders from Raleigh's 2 historically black universities say they need more funding.
We're doing the lifting. We need a little help.
We can't call ourselves the research triangle and be in the middle of that and not think we don't have dollars that are actually flowing. It's just, where are they going? They seem to skip St. Augustine and Shaw.
This comes at a time when St. Augustine's University has publicly struggled with financial and accreditation issues.
We are in a fight for survival.
He and Shaw's president pointed to the racial equity initiative in Charlotte that benefits its HBCU, Johnson C. Smith University. Council members say they want the city to explore what that initiative might look like in Raleigh.
If we can show that it will work and that we have a initial goal of maybe this digital hub as being the first initiative that is funded through it, that could be extremely helpful.
But Mayor Marianne Baldwin says the schools need to also bring something to the table, though.
Looking for you to kind of take the lead.
Just steps away from Raleigh's downtown, both Shaw and St. Augustine's University sit on prime real estate.
The land certainly has a lot of value to you, to us. That would be my first step.
How do we create affordable housing district within the confines of what St. Aug's has?
But not everyone agrees with this idea.
State has land. Nobody's asking state for affordable housing.
Dillard says the conversation of a potential partnership between the city and the local HBCUs has been ongoing since at least last year. After today's committee meeting, the proposals will go to the full council for consideration next month. Destiny Patterson, WRAL News, Raleigh.
This week, we're going to go down ballot here and focus on the race for Raleigh's mayor. We talked to 5 candidates about 3 topics that all of you at home have said are very important to you. Ashley's going to have part 1 of the series in just a couple of minutes. But first, before we talk about who gets the job, we should talk about what the job even is. What I mean is, what does Raleigh's mayor actually do? What powers do they really have? And we should start by mentioning being the mayor isn't a full-time job. Okay, the current mayor, Marianne Baldwin, makes $37,000 a year, which is actually up from the $24,000 a year they were making a few years ago. Being the mayor is kind of like having a high-profile side hustle, in a way. We took a look at the state law and at Raleigh's city charter to get kind of an idea of the specifics. The mayor presides over city council meetings, something you probably know. They enforce rules of decorum. They can call special meetings, vote in city council decisions. They make committee appointments, sit on those committees sometimes, and they sign contracts on behalf of the city. But those aren't exactly the big sweeping powers. A lot of elected officials do that sort of stuff. There are, though, 2 pretty big things that the mayor is responsible for. The mayor can call a state of emergency, and in an emergency, the mayor can regulate public events, the sale of alcohol and possession of weapons in public. They can set curfews and restrict business activity. We know this, right? We saw a lot of this thing during the pandemic. Those are pretty big sweeping powers, aren't they? And that's something to consider. Then there's this passage of the city charter. The mayor, quote, reports to the citizens of the city of Raleigh concerning the conditions of city affairs. In other words, if there is a direct line of communication between the city and the people, that line goes through the mayor. That's why when big stuff happens, like riots break out in Raleigh in 2020, Mayor Mary Ann Baldwin was the one who had to answer the questions about that. The mayor is front and center, fielding the praise sometimes and sometimes fielding the criticism. So when you think about who you want to be the mayor, you're looking for someone who can lead and someone who you can trust with those emergency powers. Ashley?
Yeah, exactly. And that someone will use their soft power, as you were kind of describing it, to set priorities for the city and steer the city council and city manager to turn those priorities into action. Tonight, we explore where each of the 5 candidates stand on making housing more affordable in Raleigh. They each have their own ideas. We'll walk you through them. Kat?
And it's a beautiful night at the North Carolina State Fair, but we've got 2 cold fronts on the way before the fair ends. I'll let you know some of the best days to head out that way coming up.
Well, congratulations. You have almost made it. Only 2 weeks left of this campaign season. Do you feel that way too? By now, you probably have a sense of who you'll be voting for in the big races like president and governor. If you don't, you've at least thought about it. But have you spent much time thinking about the down ballot races? You know, Raleigh's current mayor, Mary Ann Baldwin, she's not running again. That means the city is getting a new mayor. It will be one of 5 candidates: Janet Cowell, Terrence Ruth, Paul Fitz, Eugene Myrick, and James Shaughnessy. I sat down with all of them. We talked about issues important to you: affordable housing, public safety, and downtown revitalization. Same topics for all candidates, basically the same questions. That way you can compare them. I'm not going to play the full interviews here. If you want to watch those, we are going to post them to WRAL.com and the WRAL YouTube page. You can watch them in full there. Instead, for the next few days, we will go issue by issue, highlighting the candidates' positions and hopefully helping you make an informed decision based on who fits with your values. So tonight, let's focus on housing in Raleigh that you can afford. So let's get into it. How do these 5 people want to address that issue? You know, all candidates want to address the affordable housing crisis. Over the last 4 years, the median home price in Raleigh has gone up 42%, from $316,000 in October 2020 to $445,000 last month. And the median rent in the city is over $1,500. Terrence Ruth, Paul Fitz, Eugene Myrick, Janet Cowell, they have similar positions. They want to utilize state, county, or city-owned land for development. But each of the candidates have different ideas on how they want to execute that. Paul Fitz, for example, he's a mortgage broker, and he has this proposal. He wants to make room for more housing by moving Central and Women's Prison out of downtown Raleigh.
Why they left 2 prisons in the most expensive real estate in the entire state just boggles my mind. Both prisons are outdated. Central Prison came into effect sometime in the late 1800s. I believe both facilities could easily be removed and allowing housing to take place in those areas.
Janet Cowell, she is the former state treasurer, and she takes a finance-focused approach. For example, she wants to use a strategy. It's called tax increment financing. I know it's a fancy word, but here's a really, really simplified explainer. Essentially, the government and the public come together, they make an investment. Then the short-term gains on that investment go towards subsidies, which help pay for affordable housing.
That's a tool that Raleigh has not used much, and I would love to see us use it like Charlotte, Durham, and other cities have.
Now, something that Cowell and Terrence Ruth have in common is their desire to get other organizations involved, like nonprofits and businesses. But Ruth, who is an NC State assistant professor, was the only one to bring up collaborating with faith-based communities.
And I've been working with the faith community to really rethink their property and land as well with the county. And that's another audience that's ready to engage.
Now, James Shaughnessy, by far the youngest candidate in the race. He's a student at William Peace University. He sees that as an advantage. And Shaughnessy sees the future of housing in Raleigh as being vertical. No more single-family homes. He wants mixed-use condo buildings only.
As well as like having that retail space on the first floor as part of mixed use, you get a strong tax base from sales tax, and it offers more mobility or less mobility for cars.
All right, lastly, Eugene Myrick. He was one of the people who tried to block the city from rezoning Shaw University. That was a failed attempt. Myrick thinks the requirements to qualify for affordable housing are really out of touch with reality. Right now, your income would have to be at least 80% below the area median income. So for a family of four, that's $97,800. Myrick wants affordable housing to be based on an individual's income, not a math equation from a federal agency.
Like, let's get the income of those folks that live there now to ensure that before they moved out, they have a place to live.
His point is there needs to be more flexibility with what the city deems affordable. All right, so this is just one topic that we have covered in our conversations. Next up, we go over public safety, things like police funding, security measures. That is tomorrow night, right here on WRAL News at 7. And again, the full interviews and much more information to educate yourself before you hit the ballot will be available on WRAL.com.
Wow, good stuff, Ashley. Thank you. Getting to know these candidates and these issues, so important. There's so much to talk about during this election cycle. So if you feel a little overwhelmed, don't worry about it. We are here to sort it out for you. So meteorologist Kat Campbell joining us now. We've had some gorgeous weather, and it is interesting looking at this because if there was that time where we felt like we couldn't get away from the rain, and here we are in what feels like another week without even a drop.
And we had severe drought earlier in the year. So we've just seen these extremes all year where we're either way too dry or we are in just deluge after deluge of rain. And when you look at the month so far, we've had 0.01 inches of rain for October. We're running more than 2 inches below normal for rain for October. For meteorological fall, we're running more than 5.5 inches above normal. And for the year as a whole, this number is really impressive. 11.4 inches above normal, and it's the second wettest year to date at RDU, despite having almost no rain this month, second driest on record, and being in drought earlier in the year. So really a lot of extremes that we've seen. Not much rain in the forecast anytime soon. We do have a 20% chance for rain Saturday night and again on Sunday night. I wouldn't cancel any plans for that. It's a small chance, and it would not add up to much in your rain gauge. Over the next week, high pressure will be in control. A couple of cold fronts are on the way. This cold front in particular is going to help to keep what's left, just tropical remnants, away from us, but it's also going to bring some cooler weather for the end of the work week. It's just remnants now of what's left of Oscar. It's continuing to move to the northeast now at 12 miles per hour. And what's left of it at this point is just unorganized rain, pretty much. It'll come close to Bermuda, but expect conditions to improve really starting tonight and tomorrow night for the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. Just wanted to mention that in case you have any family or friends who are traveling. But we're not done with hurricane season yet, and there are signs that we've got to watch close to Central America as we get into next week for some possible tropical development. You could see that orange pop up for a second there. That's about a 70% chance that a tropical depression could form next week. We'll watch that region closely. Just wanted to stress, nothing looks particularly concerning. Just don't let your guard down just yet. 65 out there right now. I mean, it is a phenomenal night. You can see a clear sky and some pink in the distance for breast cancer awareness. A beautiful night in downtown Raleigh and a nice day tomorrow. Head to the playground. By 8 a.m., we should already be around 50. I do think closer to sunrise, we're going to be in the upper 40s tomorrow morning. By noon, 76 degrees, 80 for the afternoon. It's going to be a beautiful day. Full sunshine expected. And take a look at our WRAL Weather Watcher picture today. This one's from Lewisburg. Taylor sent it in. You can start to see the leaves on the top of her tree changing. We would love to see some of your fall foliage pictures and share them on TV. Go to WRAL.com and search Weather Watchers so we can showcase some of those pictures. Over the next 7 days, here's a preview of what to expect. Some 80s on the horizon tomorrow and Saturday. Mid-70s wedged between Thursday and Friday. Should be beautiful days out at the State Fair. Little warm on Saturday in the sunshine, and then if you're a fan of the cooler fall weather, Sunday may be your day to head that way. A lot more clouds moving in Sunday into early next week. That combined with some cooler air should keep us in the 60s.
Thank you, Kat. Some good news for one of the most endangered species in the U.S., the red wolf. A local museum just got a mated pair. Our one last thing in about 2 minutes. Hey, real quick, we wanted to show you, this is Doug Emhoff on the stage right now. Former President Trump is also in Greensboro. This is Carborough, where Doug Emhoff took the stage just moments ago for a live event. We just wanted to make sure we check back in on what was happening around our state. We'll have the latest for you tonight.
We have some good news out of the North Carolina mountains. Guests will have access to areas including the Mile-High Swinging Bridge, Black Rock Trail, the Grandfather Loop, and more. Tickets are limited during this first phase of reopening.
Good news.
And one last thing for you tonight, some more good news for our state's natural environment.
2 red wolves arrived at the Museum of Life and Science in Durham this week. Red wolves, this is Oka and Martha. They're a mated pair. This is a big deal because red wolves are one of the most endangered species in the U.S. This is part of the museum's SAFE program. It's all about protecting endangered species like these.
The museum recently had a pair of red wolves with 5 pups. The family of wolves recently sent to the Wolf Conservation Center in New York. So the hope is that Oka and Martha can bring more red wolves into the world and repopulate this species. Thank you for making WRAL your choice for local news. Our next newscast is at 10 on Fox 50 and 11 on WRAL.
Have a great night.
WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.